Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to the show, the Down Phoenix Show. Wrong window. Here we go. Whoops. This is all live. No editing. Nothing. Everything is cut and dry, just like you'd see here. And I see some people posting comments right now in the chat. What's up, Bio Phoenix? Sorry, you got cut off because the chat is laid out in a specific way, so my apologies with that. But anyways, we are here today to talk about IGN and Humble. So let me go ahead and cue a little muse, and we'll go ahead and get started on that topic there. I'm just going to turn the music down just a tiny bit. Just want a little bit of background music to kind of like, I don't know, just have background music, be a little more professional and whatnot. But anyways, one of the big stories that's going on right now is IGN, aka a subsidiary of Ziff Davis, who is a subsidiary of a company called J2 Global. A lot of subsidiaries, I know. They bought out a company that a lot of people have a lot of enjoyment with. The company known as Humble Bundle. Now, I don't know if that's their official name. They probably have, I think it was like Humble LLC or something like that. But anyways, what the great thing about Humble Bundle was they would pair up with various game publishers, and this is how they started essentially, although they do more stuff now, but they paired up with various game publishers in order to get Steam keys, DRM free keys, and things like that of various computer games, and more recently some console games even. But what they did was they reached out to them to see if they can get these keys for free to sell to people for charity, or they can also kick back to the publishers as well, or a mix of both, whatever people decide. And they can choose the amount that they want to pay for some of these games. Now, they do have some tiers where you have to pay like a certain amount to get to that tier before you get those games in that tier. And then, of course, there's like a set amount if you want to get all of the games that they're offering in that bundle. And that's where they kind of started their model. They're a very charitable company. They've raised over $100 million in donations, which is really awesome to see. They've been around for about 7 years, and Humble Bundle is awesome. Okay, it's very awesome. There's been a few controversies here and there, but for the most part, they've been a very giving community for the gamers, and I really appreciate what they do. Now, IGN, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, is a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and make a slight tweak to this chat here just because I think I have a little too much. Yeah, I want to add just a little bit of transparency to that. So I forgot to do that. But anyways, IGN, on the other hand, they've been around for over 20 years. Like I said before, they're a subsidiary of Ziff Davis, which is a major publication and media company. They have various different brands. IGN is simply one of them. Now, IGN is one of their biggest brands, of course, and IGN covers a lot of things, most notably gaming, but they also cover movies and sports and things like that as well, TV shows. They also recently swallowed Kotaku into their ranks, so they've got more than just IGN for the game publication stuff, you know. And they kind of run things a little bit differently. Yeah, Humble Bundle, Limited Run, well, it's opinions, right? But I'm sure not too many people will disagree with that. But anyways, that's what IGN's all about. Now, IGN has seen a lot of terrible press off and on from the gaming community. Some of that rightly so, of course, because everybody knows of certain review controversies like giving games a 7.8 because they had too much water, for example. I mean, that's not even a legitimate criticism. I mean, maybe if it was a game where you played in the desert and there was too much water, sure, that might be a legit complaint. But who knows? As long as there's an explainable reason for it, it's okay, right? But seriously, that's kind of where IGN is. They've had that kind of stuff. They've had various controversies, but overall, a lot of that controversy is due to the fact that they're just a big company. You know, they're a really big company. They're one of the top companies in terms of gaming media, and so you're going to have a big target painted on you whenever that happens. So I want to go ahead and talk about what exactly is this about? What exactly are we seeing here as far as the IGN situation here? So this is from the Humble Bundle blog itself. as they're saying Humble Bundle is joining forces with IGN. Now, this is, of course, a pretty big blanket statement that sounds like the typical PR mumbo-jumbo, okay? So they're joining the IGN family. That's basically a nice way of saying that they have been acquired by IGN. We don't know what the details of that merger are, or buyout, or whatever it was, but they are part of IGN now. And they kind of go into, like, that they want to, the IGN is a good partner for them because they share their vision, their passion for games, yada yada. And they, of course, talk about what they've done over the years, and it's all nice and dandy, mumbo-jumbo, but at the end of the day, it's not really that important, you know? It's just the typical stuff that you're going to hear, you know? That's not really what this story is about. What people are mainly concerned about is that the fact that the Humble Bundle company, Humble Bundle or whatever they're called, they have recently started doing game publishing. They started publishing video games. And this is something that people are concerned about because IGN is a game publication. They're part of the gaming media. And people have concerns, of course, rightly so, that mixing gaming media with gaming publication is a bad idea, okay? So that is a very interesting concern they have. Not one that I've heard people discuss when IGN used to run a site called Direct to Drive, where, you know, they distributed games just like Steam, or whenever IGN had GameSpy, of course, where they ran multiplayer networks for games. These weren't concerns back then. I don't know if maybe people just weren't concerned about it, or if they didn't really understand the impact of what all that meant. But that's the fact of the matter, of course. And so, anyways, the concern, of course, is that IGN may perhaps offer some kind of incentive to direct people to Humble Bundle by giving reviews of Humble Bundle games good review scores so that they seem a little bit better of a bet. Of course, you know, that's always a concern, of course. You know, Humble Bundle has had bundles in the past that were based on games having a high review score. But at least from what I understand, the precedent that they've set on that hasn't been on any one specific review site. It's been on an aggregate, usually based off of Metacritic or something like that, a combination of scores to judge a game's overall quality. That's what they've kind of done in the past. Now, from what I understand, they're supposedly not changing anything with the way they're running. IGN has, of course, said that they're going to allow them to run things the way they've been running it. There's no changes planned at this time. And if that's the case, that's really good. That's really good to hear because I really like how Humble Bundle has been doing things so far. And I wouldn't want to see them change anything as far as that. You know, they've done a really good job with that stuff. And I hope that they continue to do great things. You know, I really hope that they do. But, you know, like I said, there's always the concerns. Now, some people may not understand this, but there's already been a precedent set for this. IGN is not unique in this aspect. As a matter of fact, the company that a lot of people dislike, GameStop, is also guilty of this, and even to a deeper degree than IGN. See, GameStop, they're of course a game distributor. You go in there to their retail stores, you can buy video games, accessories, collectibles, all that good stuff, right? So you can buy all kinds of different things at GameStop related to video games. And then they also have a game publishing arm called Game Trust, where they publish video games for various indie companies and release both digital and physical products for those games. And on top of that, they are also a game distributor online because they do have GameStop.com where you can download PC games and things like that. And on top of that, they have their own review site, /magazine. As you guys may know, if you've ever been into a GameStop, you've probably been asked to sign up for the Power Up Rewards program, where you can get bonuses like discounts on used games, accessories, extra trade bonuses, things like that. But one of the main things that they like to push is a subscription to Game Informer magazine. See, Game Informer is a magazine that is operated under the GameStop umbrella. As you can see, the magazine's been around for a long time. They were independent, but GameStop bought them out whenever they bought out FuncoLand, because FuncoLand was actually publishing the magazine. I was off. I said they were independent. They were actually under FuncoLand, so that's my mistake there. But GameStop became the owner of that magazine whenever that happened. And Game Informer, surprisingly, is one of the most popular magazines in the world still. It's one of the most successful print magazines that are still out there. And as far as I understand, they're the most powerful and popular one in gaming. You know, they're claiming over 6 million circulation, which I guess isn't too surprising considering that you automatically get it whenever you sign up for GameStop Power Rewards membership. So, you know, that's just how that goes. I guess you could say that number might be fluffed up a little bit because of that, but it is what it is. So, now that, of course, would tell people that have this narrative that this is clearly collusion, that this is clearly a conflict of interest. I can see where those links may be applied. However, we haven't had actual precedent for that yet. For one, Game Informer, even though they are owned by GameStop, are managed separately from GameStop. The people that are behind Game Informer do not work too closely with the GameStop people. There obviously is going to be some sharing of resources and things like that. But overall, they are able to run things pretty independently. Now, some people might be like saying, well, how is that possible? What's up, Cyrus Martin? The music is a tad loud. Well, BioPhoenix, you're supposed to be my man. You're supposed to tell me this stuff. Let me go ahead and turn it down just a little bit. Okay. But anyways, thanks for hitting me up on that. This is the problem with doing things live, is sometimes you don't get things 100% right. But anyways, just to kind of go into it, you know, there is the precedent, of course, already. We have Game Informer and GameStop teamed up together. Now, that'll be very similar to IGN and Humble Bundle when you think about it, because one does publish video games and distribute them, and one does review them. GameStop distributes and publishes games, while Game Informer reviews them. Okay? Or, yeah, that's right. I had it mixed up. Okay. So anyways, that's where the links are, okay? Now, that being said, okay, yeah, maybe Cyrus is just old man, he can't hear very good. But anyways, that being said, where is the problem with that? Okay, so let's just go into a little thing here. So, Game Informer is often criticized for being way too fair to games, for one. A lot of people will be like, oh, Game Informer will give a game a 9 out of 10 so that GameStop can push those pre-orders, right? Now, that may happen in some cases, I guess we could admit, but when we look at the actual practice based on Metacritic data, which a lot of people don't understand that Metacritic is not a review site. They're a review aggregate site. And what that basically means is they take these various gaming publications, they take their review scores, they jumble them up all together, they add them all up, and then they weigh the review scores based on the overall notoriety and popularity of the publication, and they do a lot of complex mathematical equations to come up with various numbers. So it's not as simple, of course, as saying, let's say, for example, you have a game that has 5 reviews, you get a 85, an 80, a 75, a 70, and a 50 or something like that. They don't just add up those scores all together and then just make a median number out of that. That's not how that works. What they actually do is they add those numbers up, they figure out the median, but they also figure out the overall notoriety of the website. So the game publication that gave an 85, you never know. It could be a local college newspaper. While you have the one that's a 50, well, you know what? That could be a major site like IGN. Because of that, that 50 is going to lower that overall score. That's how they figure things out. Now, there are other people that do it differently, like OpenCritic. OpenCritic does truly take a median. They don't weigh one score higher than the other when factoring in the scores. They do a simple median. But anyways, we're basing this solely off Metacritic because they're the top dog, okay? They're the top dog of the organization. And I want to show you this number again. So Metacritic's average review score across all video games is 73. Game Informer, in spite of their relationship to GameStop, is only 1 point higher than the average, which, when you consider the circumstances, is remarkable. You know, Game Informer has been very consistent with the industry average, and I think that's really impressive considering those circumstances, especially the temptation that GameStop as a corporation probably has to utilize Game Informer to a slightly higher advantage to push sales. Now, of course, on an individual game basis, that could always be an issue, right? But we're just talking about the overall experience of what you can expect with their reviews. And I think that they measure up pretty favorably. I don't know what you guys think. Now, you might be wondering, well, how they measure up to other major sites. And I want to kind of show you some of that as well, because they actually measure up pretty good, at least from what I've experienced here. So Polygon, for example, they're a website that is known to be very influential lately. They do a lot of editorials and things like that. They have a lot of news sites. They're a pretty popular publication. They have some controversy, of course. I'm not going to get into that, though. But their reviews average is 73, so it's only 1 point lower. I don't know how they're figuring it out because I thought 0 was the average. I'm not really sure, but whatever. Okay, so Polygon is like right there. They're right there at the average. And they're a site that's considered kind of strict as far as their overall review scores. But if you look at the actual averages, they're pretty similar to Game Informer's. And it's not just them, of course. You know, there are other companies that set the same kind of precedent. So let's take a look at Destructoid. Destructoid is infamous for giving really low review points. Oftentimes I'll see a site like GameSpot, for example, give a game an 8. Destructoid's like, bam, 6 out of 10. You know, their reviewers are infamous for being pretty strict on their reviews. But as you can see, they're not too far from the average altogether. It does seem like the games that they like to give praise to, they certainly give praise to them. And so that keeps their average fairly close to the overall average. So I think that's pretty good, you know. I mean, obviously everybody's going to have their own overall opinions, and opinions will change. But the reason why these averages are important is because it tells us where they stand overall in the industry, what their stance is. You know, like if, for example, we go to the very top of the list, you know, if we go to, like, page 1, where it shows the highest ranking people, you're going to see something very, very different here, guys. You're going to see really high review scores. Now, some of this, of course, is based on very little data. Like, we have a company called Action Trip, which has an average review score of 88, 14 points higher, but they've only reviewed one game. However, if you look at Absolute PlayStation, they have the same score and reviewed 98 games, so there's a lot larger sample size. So when you look at numbers like that, you're thinking, well, you know what, that might be a pretty biased site. You know, that might be a bought and paid for site with getting scores that high. Either that or they only bother reviewing the best games. Like, they only review, like, your Uncharted's and Last of Us games and things like that, and they see everything else and like, nah, we're not even going to bother with those games. They're not good, so why even bother reviewing them? Who knows? Maybe that could be what their overall strategy is. A site called Game Critics. Well, they're not very critical, are they? Look at their average review score. So you see my point, guys. These companies, at least the more reputable ones, the more popular ones, they've got there for a reason. And that is because they actually do good overall reviews. Now, we might, of course, criticize some of the other things they do, and individual reviews, yes, there are some individual reviews that are very concerning. But where does IGN rank on this? IGN is often criticized for, oh, they always give Call of Duty games 10 out of 10. You know, all this crap, even though you can actually look at the statistics and see that that's not the case. The last 2 out of 3 Call of Duty games IGN has either scored at or just a tiny bit above the overall average. Black Ops 3, they were more receptive to than the average, but, you know, like I said, that just kind of dispels the notion that they always give high ratings to those games. They only do it some of the time. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at IGN's numbers here. Let me go ahead and tab over to them. And look at that. They're only a 70. They're 4 points or 3 points or whatever you want to measure it, lower than the average. So IGN is stricter than Destructoid, stricter than Polygon, and this one will probably really surprise you guys. They are stricter than Giant Bomb. Yes, Giant Bomb, one of the most infamous review sites out there for how strict they can be. I've seen reviews where Giant Bomb, like Jeff Gerstmann, would give a game like 2 out of 10 when everybody else was giving it like a 5 or a 6. Well, I mean, if we look at the overall averages, guys, we can see that IGN is actually pretty critical sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily, just based on this information, that IGN won't all of a sudden turn things around and decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and take these games that we gave really good review scores for and just throw them into a Humble Bundle. You know, that could totally happen. Or, for example, say they're going to review South Park, The Stick of Truth, or not The Stick of Truth, the Fractured But Whole. What they might end up doing is they might be like, hey, you know what, we're reviewing this game, we're going to give it a 9 out of 10, and we're going to put a link to Humble Bundle for a cheap copy of Stick of Truth for like, we'll put it on sale for like $5 or something like that, you know. That's what people are concerned about, and I guess that's always a possibility. But I guess what my point is, just because IGN bought them out doesn't mean that they're necessarily intertwined with them. As we've demonstrated with Game Informer versus GameStop, there's not any real link. There's not a real tight link between them, in spite of being under the same umbrella. There are a lot of companies that are under the same umbrella, but operate separately, and that is not at all unusual in the business world. The reason why they may be under the same company is because they may share some of the same resources. And when you measure up the fact that these companies work with the same kind of products, they both work with products that are related to video games, I don't know, it just seems like it's a win-win situation to me. I hope I'm not proven wrong, but you never know, guys. I'm just kind of pointing out my defense to this overall thing, and I wanted to kind of dispel some of the misinformation that people have been saying out there about IGN and all this nonsense, okay? I'm not a huge fan of IGN. I have my personal beefs with them, but IGN has been home to a lot of great gaming journalists. People like Colin Moriarty and, trying to think of who else. That one guy, he did the review for Destiny, but he got fired for giving a bad review for something like that. And this is like legit. He actually got fired for giving a bad review. When it comes to things like that, yeah, IGN do have their problems. Yeah, they really do. But overall, they're not really the worst people out there. Now, if you want to stick with YouTubers like myself and our opinions on games, that is awesome, because we definitely could use more support out there for the small guys. There's a lot of great YouTubers out there, like my boy Cyrus Martin right there, and BioPhoenix. There's a lot of good people out there. Anybody else that's watching, of course. It's, when it comes to video game reviews, I always trust the word of mouth of people that I like to watch on YouTube or my personal friends. I trust that more than any other review site. But that said, I still use the information that is available from those reviewers to kind of help influence and make my decisions for purchasing games. And I think that's just something that any smart gamer would do. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I appreciate you watching if you watched it live, of course. But till next time, Down Phoenix out.